into that, but we begin the hour with controversy stirred by our own G. Bush. Let's get to these tweets that are
tearing the internet. They're
everybody's going crazy about this.
Yeah, G set the internet on storm yesterday. He had a 3-tweet thread in the span of 6 minutes that generated over 100,000 impressions and over 2,500 likes. We're going to read these tweets and then kind of dive into them. G tweeted out, in order, this has to be said. If the media thinks Shedeur can't play, he's a 5th-round pick with no upside, then why does he lead every single topic in conversation? Watson is a starter. Get in your analyst bag and start talking about what needs to do week 1 against the Jags, #Browns. Next, Shedeur is good for business. I do Shedeur content because I think he can be the long-term answer. Others use his name for engagement. If he's just a backup quarterback with a famous last name, why is he your leading topic? Let's make a bet. No local media can go a week without mentioning him. And lastly, media acting like they're so burdened with the weight of having to talk about an irrelevant 5th-round pick. Okay, let me free up your schedule a bit. Just talk Guardians, Cavs, or high school football Friday Night Lights for 2 to 3 hours. Exactly. Good luck with that. So, G, the question is, now that Shedeur's quarterback 2, is he still worth being a discussion or a topic of discussion in the grand scheme of things with the Browns, or should it be dropped from our vernacular until he becomes QB1?
Well, this is a thought experiment. So it's the circular argument that we continue to have. The circular argument is Shedeur Sanders isn't very good, and Shedeur Sanders is not worth the pressure that he brings to your organization because people in his fan base are going to talk about him constantly. So I was just taking what you guys and most people say and doing a little thought experiment. If he's not that good, then why are we talking about him? Usually, generally speaking, we say we want our backup quarterbacks to be seen, not heard, and we want to talk about the people that are on the field, and the backup should not be a distraction. So my thought process is, Todd Monken said it when and talked to him, and he said, he had a smile on his face. I had another tweet in there and said he's concentrating on helping the team, being a good backup, and supporting Deshaun Watson. So, he's working on his game, and when he gets on the field, let's talk about it. My thing is, we go about the situation and say he's too famous, right? He's a distraction. He's doing these things, but yet and still, kind of like last year, when Dylan was the starting quarterback, they went to Shedeur every single day and said, hey, what do you think about Dylan? What do you think about Stefanski? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? And so that media attention then feeds into the thing that you say you don't want. If we want the starting quarterback to have the runway and to talk about the people on the field, fine, let's just do that. But my thought process is this. If Deshaun Watson is the starter, the Browns say he gives them the best opportunity to win, let him go out here and either succeed or fail on his own merits. What I don't want to happen is if Deshaun Watson starts to play well or if he starts to play bad, every Wednesday, we go to Shedeur Sanders' locker room and say, hey, what do you feel about the struggles offensively? What do you think about Todd Monken? What do you think about the ownership? And are you ready to play? Do you think you could? No. Just talk to Deshaun Watson on his own merits and let him sink or swim based on what he's going to do. I just don't want a situation where we go into this year and it's the same thing that we had last year, where Shedeur is the backup. He's not going out making comments, but people are always asking him questions about the quarterback position. And my question to everybody else is, okay, well, if he's not that good and he's a backup, we shouldn't be talking about it, right? Is that a fair
Go ahead,
assessment?
Chris. I'll go after.
So usually when you're in the locker room on Wednesdays, I believe when we're in there and talk to quarterbacks, you don't talk to the backup quarterback. It happened, I think, twice last year, and I forget what extenuating circumstances those were, but that's when Shedeur was interviewed, I think 2, maybe 3 times. So yeah, now that the quarterback is decided, it's Deshaun Watson, we're not going to hear from Shedeur Sanders anymore. They're not going to put him out on the podium. We're not allowed, or we're not going to go to his locker to get those comments. So I think that will die down a bit. I do think, and this is no one's fault on this panel, I'm not singling anybody out on this panel, or the majority of the Shedeur Sanders fans, I think this quarterback controversy or competition got so out of hand with some people. You had people vaguely threatening physical violence against reporters who maybe didn't like Shedeur Sanders. That's out of line, completely out of line, no matter who, what, where, out of line.
Completely agree.
So I think that maybe the topic has taken on a life of its own. I think we don't need to hear from Shedeur for a little while. Shedeur needs to focus on Shedeur, like I know he is. We can focus on Deshaun, but I will say, most popular quarterback on the Browns since they came back in '99 is the backup quarterback. And the second Deshaun doesn't start playing well, people are going to start asking, when's Shedeur going to play? When's Shedeur going to play? That's the nature of the beast. But I think we just need to all collectively take a deep breath. Shedeur will focus on Shedeur. Let's let Watson go out there, do what he's going to do, sink or swim. And then we'll turn the page. And next year, none of them are going to be on the roster, and it'll be whoever they draft.
So my thing, and I'll talk to you
ahead.
boys, is, one of the things that we heard was, Shedeur can't be a backup because of all the things he brings, and it puts undue pressure. We talked about it last year when Dylan Gabriel was the quarterback, and people after the third or fourth game started saying, okay, well, man, you got Dylan in a tough position. You got one of the most famous people in the world behind him. And when you think about it, Shedeur wasn't saying anything. He wasn't coming out talking about nothing. He didn't have any statements. So what I'm saying to you is, if we can learn from our situation last year, whether you believe he's a long-term quarterback or not, whether you think that the Browns are going to draft the other quarterback or not, the reality of this situation is Shedeur Sanders is concentrating and doing his job to be a backup and get his opportunity on the field. And when his opportunity comes, by all means, let's go after it. But what I don't want to do is have it be a narrative where, Deshaun Watson isn't playing well because the Shedeur Sanders factor is a specter there. Because guess what? If he does play bad, the fans will cheer. The fans will want him. The fans will want to play him. The reality is he's a polarizing individual, not because what he does, is because we seek a lot of that out. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest with you, he is good for business. People talk about him all the time because he is good for business. So we can't act like he's a distraction and we don't want to cover him, but we know we are going to cover him.
So while obviously there's truth in what you're saying, that some people talk about him all the time because he's good for business, and fans always accuse people of doing things for clicks, and some people do things for clicks. That's true. Not everybody, but some people do. I don't agree with your general premise that you shouldn't talk about him if you don't think he's the long-term answer. He's in the public eye. It's fair game to talk about him. Now, to blame Shedeur Sanders for Deshaun Watson's failure because fans and media are talking about Shedeur Sanders, that's unfair. It's unfair to blame him for that. If you're going to talk about him a lot, you then can't blame him if Deshaun Watson doesn't play well. I don't think anybody's going to do that. Certainly not a lot of people. If they do, they're wrong. But I think, and you're right, yes, people are talking about Shedeur Sanders in some cases because it's good for clicks, whether they like him or not. I also think this idea that we've gotten into now, that if you don't think he's a great quarterback, that means you hate him or you think he's a bad guy or all this. That's completely unfair.
I agree.
Right?
I agree with that.
For me personally, I can't speak for anybody else. I thought Shedeur Sanders played pretty well in that second preseason game. Now, I don't go too crazy about preseason because it's preseason. Yeah. But I thought he played well. And if you're judging just on that preseason game, he was far better than Watson. I thought Shedeur played pretty well. Even the pick I'm not going to say it was a good throw, but the tight end's got to make that play, right? It wasn't a great throw, but the tight end's got to make that play. Watson was hideous in that game. Hideous. So even if you say Shedeur was mediocre, which I think he was better than that, but even if I lower it and say he was all right, he was a C, Deshaun Watson was an F. Okay, so I would play Shedeur Sanders. I've said that consistently. I've also said consistently, I just don't see him as the long-term answer, not just because of the little we've seen of him on the field, because of, just some of the things in terms of leading the offense, in terms of what's been talked about with the play calling that I don't know personally, but that people I trust are telling me. And I understand that when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, there are in some inherent biases, both from his supporters and from his detractors. That's what's happened in this situation. We've seen this a lot in politics, obviously, where you decide what camp you're in, and everything on this side is good, and everything on that side is bad. The same thing has happened with Shedeur Sanders. And I do think there are some media members that are allowing their aggravation by the attacks from Shedeur Sanders fans to affect their coverage of Shedeur Sanders, and that's wrong. And that's unfair. Some of it, some people consciously, some people probably unconsciously. But it is happening. The idea that Shedeur Sanders would have no chance after 7 games to be at least a competent starting quarterback in the NFL, to me, is ridiculous. It's unfair. I don't agree with that. I also don't think I just don't, what I've seen, I don't think he's a good enough starting quarterback. But I'm open to the idea that I can be wrong, and I would like to see more, and that's why I'd like him to play. On the other hand, I'll get destroyed on social media for that, which is fine, but and I don't really care personally, but that's unfair.
But see, this is where I love the conversation,
Yeah.
because you are bringing it to a point of it's an opinion about what he can be as a football player.
Yes.
And in our context, that is completely fair. That is actually at the heart of what we do.
Yes.
Like, we talk about, hey, do I think this guy can play or can he not play? My thing that I'm actually pushing back is more of a commentary around the narrative that when you are very famous, when you have a lot of people who support you, you become inherently a person that is a distraction, right? And so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because you are famous, people want to know what you say and how you go about it.
Yes.
And then we go and talk to that person, and we seek that person out to say, we want to have, if Shedeur Sanders today said, I'm going to give somebody a one-on-one interview, right?
Yeah.
Anybody in the media would take it.
Yes.
They would take it.
Yes.
Even though if they didn't even think he was a good player, they would still take it because they understand that it is what it is.
It's your job.
It's your job, right?
Yeah.
I went about it, and I publicly said this. This is crazy. And
Yeah.
I said, if Shedeur Sanders said, let's do an interview today, I would actually say, I don't even know if that's a good idea. You know why? Because it's a situation where you putting undue stress on a situation where you putting the cart before the horse. At the end of the day, I think you should concentrate really on going out there, and when you play and get the opportunity, to do it at the best of your ability.
I don't know him doing an interview is stopping him from doing that.
But here's what the perception is.
Yeah.
The perception is, if we're doing an interview, there are going to be thousands of people out there that love the interview. There's going to be thousands of other people over there that hate the interview and say, why are you interviewing the backup quarterback? You need to be concentrated on what you're doing. And the thing I'm saying is that right? No, but that's life and that's human nature. So from my perspective, the way I come at it is, look, Shedeur Sanders is a guy who's a young player. I happen to believe that he can be a franchise quarterback. Maybe other people don't. But the thing that I don't want to do is I don't want to turn this conversation into, just because they chose Deshaun Watson, now Shedeur Sanders is the specter hanging over everything, which is going to put a cloud over the team.
Which he's going to be regardless, because of the fanfare that he has, because of the following, because of his name. And none of that is his fault. The few times we've talked to Shedeur, I like Shedeur. He's likable. He's easy to root for. I think he needs to develop. And there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, there's some talent there, because a lot of the people who know football better than the three of us combined said, yeah, there's some talent there. Now he's got to develop, and he's got ways to go, which is why he didn't beat out Deshaun, who was not particularly good. I think where he really could have benefited was if he went to a situation like, say, in Baltimore, where they thought they wanted him, because then you got a guy in Lamar Jackson, and it's, Shedeur, we're going to develop you. You're going to have to wait your turn. You're going to learn. And that's what he needed. But there was not that cloud, like you said, hanging over, because nobody's going to be clamoring for Shedeur Sanders when Lamar Jackson isn't playing well, or when Lamar Jackson has an off game. So I think that he needs a situation where he can sit, he can develop without the pressure of everything around him saying, you got to be the next guy. We need to see you now. Now is the time. he might be a good quarterback, but it's going to take development. It's going to be down the line. And I really don't think it's going to happen in Cleveland because the timeline just doesn't match up.
I think also as we talk about this conversation, because I talk to a lot of people who support Shedeur Sanders. And one of the things that I found was there are people that are a lot more level-headed than a lot of people give them credit for. People all the time say, hey, listen, we wanted him to be the starting quarterback, but guess what? They chose Deshaun Watson. We think Shedeur is going to get his opportunity, and when he's working behind the scenes to get better every day, and we just going to let it play out and see what it is.
By the way, I spoke, Sean King is a regular now on my podcast, and I spoke with him, what's today, Thursday? I spoke with him on Tuesday, and he had a really interesting take. Check it out, folks. See, I want some clicks right there.
There it is. Get them clips, boy.
But Sean made a very interesting point that he actually thinks, and this is kind of what you were saying, that this is actually good for Shedeur, or at least good for his chances of potentially becoming the Browns quarterback, because he thinks there's no chance Deshaun's going to make it through the season, which I think we're all probably in agreement on.
Yeah.
And that by the time Shedeur comes in, now maybe it's week 2, who the hell knows if Deshaun gets hurt, but that we were talking about how, okay, most of your skill position talent on offense is young. So now that, especially the rookies, are going to have a little time to get their feet under them before he becomes quarterback. And the offensive line, let's face it, which is very questionable, also has barely played together.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's not young outside of left tackle, there's veterans, but they haven't played together. There's been some banged up guys. They'll probably be, I don't know how good they're going to be, but I would assume they'll be better week 5 or 6 than they're going to be in week 1. So in the long run, assuming Shedeur Sanders gets a chance to play at some point this season, which I'd say is highly likely, in the long run, we may look back and say, you know what? It was better that Watson started. He stunk. He got beat up. The receivers needed to work out there some things. The offensive line needed to develop chemistry. And by the time Shedeur comes in, maybe he has a better chance to have success.
And we're also talking about grasping a new offense really for first time in his career in a quick manner. And it's all those things that go into playing quarterback at this level that you can't see on a quarterback tracker of, maybe Deshaun threw some interceptions. Maybe Coach Monken said, hey, I want you to work on this backside post. And I know it's probably going to get picked off, but that's what our defensive backs need to work on. And you lose that when all you go off of are completions, touchdowns, interceptions.
The quarterback tracker is a complete joke. It's a complete joke.
I like the guys over there. I take it for what you will at face value. Yeah. But Deshaun has run an NFL offense. Deshaun knows the timing because he's a veteran. He's supposed to. Like we said, Shedeur sit. You can have some time to learn, grasp the offense better. The rest of the offense gets their feet under him, like you said, and we'll see what this looks like when eventually he does get a chance, because he's going to get a chance at some point.
Two quick things, and I think these are important things. I like the way Shedeur Sanders handled himself when he was with Aditi. Shout out to Aditi. And they basically had the sideline. She was talking to him at the game.
Yeah.
And she said, what happened if you're not the starting quarterback? He said, well, hey, listen, I've learned patience. If I'm not the starting quarterback, I'm going to go and prepare like I'm going to be the starter for my opportunity. And if I am the starting quarterback, I'm still going to operate the same way and prepare myself as the starting quarterback. So I thought that he did a really good job. His meeting was very positive with Coach Todd Monken. And more than anything, I like the fact that in this game, there has to be a little bit of a profession. As a quarterback, you have to have that professional nature where you don't go when it doesn't work out for you. He showed a lot of maturity and said, listen, he was all smiles and he did what he needed to do. And the second big thing I thought he showed some maturity was it would be very easy for him to just sit back and not say anything about Deshaun Watson and booing, right? Because he could come back and say, I don't want to attach myself to this. They love me. I'm good. I got a fan base, but I'm going to stay out of that. He not only said one time on the sideline, hey, I get it, but it don't sit right with me with the booing, right? He came back in the press conference and he again said, look, I get that you guys have a right to boo, and I understand that, but just he's showing that, listen, at the end of the day, he's standing up for his teammate, and it would be very easy for you to turn the other way and just look away.
Yeah.
And to be truthful, that's what quarterbacks and the franchise quarterback does. He also did it with Kevin Stefanski and said, I'm not going to question the coach. So I thought those two things were cool. And I think in general, a lot of people waiting to see him wait and play, and we'll wait and see what happens when he does get his chance.
I do think he has shown growth in terms of maturity. I mean, he's still a young man. I thought there were a couple of times last year he said things that were nothing terrible, but that were a little head scratching. And I think this year he hasn't done any of that. In fact, I can't remember what happened, but he apologized to the media at one point.
He did the mime.
Well, he apologized. I think he apologized about something this summer, like or
Right.
just yeah.
Right, and I just thought it was a real sign of growth, and I'll give him credit because he could say, like, I'm not talking to the media anymore. There's too many. There's people that are anti-me. There's people, and he doesn't do that. What's that?
I don't think he can do that. I think that's an NFL rule.
If he's a starting,
Well,
if
you're a
starting
quarterback, you have to start.
Well, if he's a starting quarterback,
Right.
yes. But I'm saying he's talked a few times this offseason.
he's talked to Cameron Justice in a one-on-one interview.
He hasn't done a group interview.
He does a weekly press conference kind of deal. Yeah,
Right, but he doesn't have to do that.
I think he does if you're in a quarterback competition.
All right,
But-
what I'm saying is he could have been more surly and
Yeah, no, he
and a pain in the
absolutely-
neck when it comes to it, and because guys have done that didn't want to talk, and he hasn't. So I think I don't think there's a lot of people. I really don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. I really don't think there's a lot of people that have a beef with Shedeur personally. I think there's frustration from some that if you aren't over the top with praise for him, that you just get attacked on social media, which is not the real world, and that can get frustrating, and thus you could take it out on the player, which again is unfair. But it's if we're going to say players are human, Deshaun Watson, so are media members. They're human too, and you get insulted enough times, sometimes you strike back, and that's what happens.
After the Titans game last year, I did a post-game recap, and I said, hey, rookie quarterbacks, it's a roller coaster. Shedeur makes an incredible throw.
Yeah.
Then he throws a baffling interception. The Titans get the ball, and they end up winning the game. And I got attacked on mentions, emails, voicemails. They're like, how could you blame Shedeur for that loss? And I said he got him back in the game, but literally the interception was what led the Titans to taking the lead for good. He's a rookie. That's okay. But you're right. There is this idea that if you don't love him, you hate him, and that's just not the case. It's always the loudest that seem like the biggest, but they're always the minority.
That is true. And ultimately, none of us in the media are going to stop talking about him.
There you go. And the thesis is, I won the bet. I told you. I guarantee you. Go into your producer and say, I want to talk high school football right now tomorrow.
Yeah.
Go
No,
McKinley.
but the reality is,
We're going to talk about it.
I'd rather talk about the Guardians for 2 hours, but
we know what the
we'll go
stimulus
break
is.
in one sec. But no, the reality is the Browns have started 43 quarterbacks since '99, and they've started 4+ quarterbacks each of the last 3 seasons. He's going to play this year.
Yeah, it's a storyline.
If he's going to play, he is a story. Shedeur Sanders, whether he's QB1 or QB2, is a story for the Cleveland Browns.
And if Deshaun Watson stinks, it's because of Deshaun Watson, not because of talk about Shedeur.
There we go. That's
I mean, anybody that would say
mission
otherwise
accomplished. The tweet,
is
you're all welcome. I told you what it was. Let's get it. We go to break.
There you go. All right, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, we're talking guards. They've won 7 in a row.
Yeah.
They